that on? Yes. Hurrah. Right, let's try again now. Right, good evening everybody. Thank you all for turning out on this evening to hear what's going on with the Greenbelt. I just wanted to do some quick introductions before we kick off. So my name's Jo Tunstall. I'm Secretary of the campaign group for Chapeltown, Ecclesfield and Grenoside. To my far left, that is Jill Travis, who is the chair of our group. Sitting in the middle here is Joe Berkby, our legal eagle. And directly to my left is Mr. Ash, who is our brown belt guru. So yeah, all four of us will be speaking tonight, so I'll be kicking off the show. We are all volunteers, so we are not council, we're not none of us are council employees. We are volunteers that mobilise this campaign group to save the Greenbelt sites that we've got in Chapeltown, Ecclesfield and Grenoside. We are not affiliated to any political party. We do have some of our councillors here tonight from various parties. They will be available for any of you to speak to later after the session. What we've also got around the room are people either with green tops on or with lanyards. So any questions, what we're going to do is you guys go and speak to them on a one-to-one basis at the end. We're not doing sort of like a public Q&A, mainly because you'll be here all night, because I'm sure lots of people have got lots of different questions. So the format really is just very much an information download to you tonight. Hopefully a lot shorter than last week, because it was quite a long session last week and I take the guilt for that because I didn't show up. So from a housekeeping point of view, there's no fire alarms planned. If the fire alarm does go off, then we've got fire exits over there and just congregate out onto that side. Toilets, they're out into the main foyer. Always wanted to do this. Out into the main foyer, and also there's toilets just around the corner here as well. If anybody needs to go, just don't need to put your hand up. Although I know we're in this. Sorry, my voice is going already. I know we're in a school, but you don't need to put your hand up to go to the loo. If you could stick your phones on silent if anybody's got their phone on, that would be appreciated, just so it doesn't interrupt us. What you will also see, which if you can make time at the end, is lots of posters around. Loads of information here, and also some simulations, what you'll see as well, of what our environment could look like if these developments go ahead. Pretty scary stuff, so if you look at these and go home and sleep soundly, then you've clearly not had a good enough look at these pictures. The session tonight we are recording, so if anybody's got any concerns with that, just avoid the cameras over there. And then just to let anybody know who is journalistic, if you come to us at the end, myself and Jill will do any interviews and any question answering at the end. We'll probably go through there if that's okay. So from an event format perspective, as I mentioned, this is very much an information download to you. There will be loads of information that we'll be giving you tonight. The good news is you don't need to remember it all, there's no test at the end. But what we've also put on your chairs are leaflets with some of the key takeaway information that you need to know. One of the leaflets, the more glossy one, is really about what we've done and what we're doing next. The paper one is very much about things that we've uncovered during this process around things we were told versus what is actually the case. So really interesting reads, so take those away with you and have a good read of those. We've got raffle tickets for anybody that's not had a chance to get raffle tickets. All proceeds go to our campaign group. Lots of nice prizes on offer, so if you want to. Yeah, so lots of nice prizes if you want to sort of like help yourself go get raffle tickets, pound a strip. We've also got merch there, and at the end we've got a petition over there for people to sign as well. Okay, right, so why have we set this meeting up? So what we wanted to do was give you all a recap on the proposals that were in the Greenbelt specific to, you know, our area. What we wanted then to do is give you a reminder of what the campaign group is about, what, you know, why we are doing what we're doing, and also set out the implications if the plan does go ahead. What, you know, what are the implications for us as communities, but also as you guys individually. What we're then going to do is I'm going to give you a rundown of what we've done so far. So it's been not far off a year now that we've been running at this, and it's taken its toll. It's been one hell of a year, but we wanted to let you guys know, just give you a recap over what's happened. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to hand to Joe and Ash, because what they'll do is they're going to tell you about what comes next, what are the next steps. And then Jill's going to wrap up the event at the end with regards to how you can help us to help you save our environment. Okay, so first things first, what I want to do is A, thank you all for coming, but B, put a thank you out to the community as well for everything that you have done so far supporting our campaign, and us personally as well. Just thanks and messages of support go a long way, because we have put, between us as a campaign group, around about 10,000 hours in over the past year. We've sat down and worked out how many hours we've contributed, and it's about 10,000 hours that we've done. So, like I say, words of support when we've had dark times have been, really, kept us going and motivational. So thank you. So from a community point of view, you guys played a very, very instrumental role getting the word out as to what this plan was about and the implications it was going to have, because the council themselves really didn't do, our communities any service by way of giving us the information. We had to find a lot of this out, from one meeting that was held, meeting that was held in Chapeltown, and then there was one, I think, at Gatty Hall, and I don't know if there was one at Greenside, but that was the only thing we've had from a council perspective, and then they held these planning sessions. So getting the word out to the wider community has been instrumental to get everybody on board with understanding what's happening. The leaflets that we did, 10,000 leaflets we put out across Chapeltown, Ecclesfield and Greenside. As a community group, we couldn't do that ourselves, so massive thank you to all the volunteers that went out in all weathers, putting leaflets out there. Not only getting their hands bitten by dogs, but also getting nice scrapes from various savage letterboxes out there. I think that quite a few of us have got the scars to prove it. Posters, just putting posters up in your windows, banners out in front of your houses, and just, generally spreading the word with your friends, your neighbours, and your family about what was going to happen. So, I think we've got a reasonable level of awareness now out there in the community as to, what is happening out there. Also, a thank you for the engagement that you've done during the consultation process. We've had 2 separate consultations so far. The first consultation, we had 3,500 submissions that were put into the council about the plan, basically saying, we didn't, as a community, find that plan sound. Since that, what's then happened is we've had another consultation on all the hundreds of documents that were produced after the plan. You would think that, the plan would have the justification before the decisions are made, but the decision was made, and we now seem to have hundreds and hundreds of documents being produced since to validate the plan that was done many months ago. But hey. So yes, thank you to all of you for your contributions during the consultation period. The second consultation we did just before Christmas, I think we got about 2,500 representations. So again, really good turnout for that one. Thank you to everybody that signed and shared the petition. It's over there for anybody that wants to sign it that hasn't done. We're going to keep doing that. Thank you for engaging on social media. Like I say, liking posts, sharing posts, putting comments on there is all positive and helps our algorithm get the message out wider. It starts popping up on other people's Facebook feeds. To those people that have protested outside the town hall in all weathers, massive thank you to you. You really have turned out and shown the council that we are not going away. We still have a voice, and we're going to fight this every step of the way. And then the highlight for last year for me was the community march that we did. So with about a week's notice, we managed to mobilise about 500 people to come on a march down from Grenoside and up from Chapeltown. And it was actually really emotional. It was mind-blowing. And you know, I think it was a really good way for the community to pull together and show that we mean business, that we're not going to take this lying down. So big thanks to everybody who attended that march. And the final thing that I just wanted to thank you all was for your financial support. So anybody that's bought merch, that's donated to the GoFundMe, that's put cash in our hands, bought raffle tickets and so forth tonight. So money is the key to this campaign going forward, I'm afraid, because from a volunteer's point of view, we've run beyond our capabilities now, so it's going to become very legal, but Jill will pick up more on that later. And thank you to everybody that came to Greenfest and that did donations and just supported that by way of the funding for that. That was a good little injection of funds for us at a time when we really needed it. I will give you a breakdown of some of the spend that we've done later by way of what we've had incoming and what we spent some of that money on. So, what I wanted to now quickly do is give you a recap of the plan by way of the Greenbelt sites. So, Sheffield Plan has been running for many years with regards to mainly a brownfield first approach. So, probably about 35,000 homes are planned on brownfield sites across Sheffield. What happened last February was that the government inspectors wrote Sheffield Council to say to them that we weren't delivering enough houses within Sheffield. We were about 3,500 short of the targets that the government wanted us to deliver, and also about 53 hectares of employment land short. So what happened was the council basically then went away, had a look at the plan, said, we need to build on Greenbelt to deliver these 3,500 homes and this 53 extra hectares of employment land. The new plan came out with these Greenbelt sites proposed in April last year. The plan then went to the council vote in May. Now, from a vote point of view, this was about voting for that plan to go forward to public consultation. From a voting point of view, we didn't at the time have a Reform councillor in, so I can't say that Reform voted for or against. But from a voting point of view, all the Greens voted for this plan. Let that sink in. The Green Party voted to decimate Greenbelt. Okay? Most of the Labour councillors voted also for the Greenbelt, which is, it's not unexpected because the directive is coming from central government, who is a Labour government. So you would expect most of the Labour councillors to vote for their party's, directive. We did have some of the Labour councillors abstained, primarily in the areas that it's impacted. And then the Lib Dems as well also all collectively voted against the plan. So I just wanted to give you that as a backdrop. Of the sites, there was 14 Greenbelt sites that were put into the plan. Now this is the stat that it still blows my brain with regards to the 14 sites. Of those 14 sites, Greenbelt sites allocated 9 of them sit in S35. So, there's quite a few postcodes in Sheffield, we're quite a big city, but 9 of 14 sit in S35, which is, quite a high number. From a campaign group perspective, we cover 7 of those sites. So we cover all the sites in Chapeltown, we cover all the sites in Ecclesfield, and we cover all the sites in Grenoside. The 2 other sites that sit in S35 is Warncliffe Side and Oosterbridge, but they've got their own campaign groups. So, that's why we only cover Chapeltown, Ecclesfield and Grenoside. So we're covering 7 of the sites. 3 of those 7 sites are employment designated sites. So these are sites that are designated for employment land. And when I say employment land, I am talking logistics, warehousing, which are massive. And these aren't, your small ones. So if any of you have seen the news and seen Astley warehousing, if you haven't, go home and look it up. And it's scary. These are monsters, these warehouses. I think they were sort of like likened to having a cruise ship on your back garden. they're so big and so impactful. So the sites that we've got planned for employment sites are one at Warren Lane, one at Hesley Wood, which is the top of Chattertown Park next to the Scout Camp, behind the Cowley Estate, and then one at Smithy Wood, which is the other side of the Smithy Wood Business Park. It's actually on what's called Butterthwaite land down at Ecclesfield. So you can see how closely those employment sites are sat together. So that's the 3 employment sites. What we've then got are 3 dedicated housing sites. So those housing sites are one across the road from here, literally 20 yards from the school gates. 549 houses are planned for Strawberry Fields, which I think most people in here will know it collectively known as Strawberry Fields. We've then got 188 houses planned for Grenoside, which is as you go up Saltbox Lane, Grenoside Grange Hospital on the left-hand side behind there, 188 homes. And then the other site that was in the plan as well was one, as you go up Wheel Lane, on the right-hand side you'll see fields with horses in there. 148 homes were planned for there. So those are the 3 sites of our area, purely for housing. What we've then got is another site, which is a mixed-use site, which is Town End Farm. So Town End Farm at Ecclesfield, on the left-hand side, off the wheel, farmed by Adele and Andrew Riddle, some of you will know. They've been on there 44 years, farming as tenant farmers on there. So that is planned for 609 houses. It's planned for a multi-faith burial yard, 2 schools, 1 special educational needs and 1 secondary school. So that gives you the sort of like recap of what is planned for a very, very small area. So, since the plan was announced back in April last year, what's happened? So we've run the council obviously voted for a public consultation to go ahead. That started in May last year and ran through to July, and that was the 3,500 representations that I talked about. What then happened was the inspectors' hearings, which started in September last year and ran through to middle of November. So this was about the inspectors basically doing an examination of the plan put forward and all the supporting documents, which weren't actually all there at the time. More documents have been produced since to evidence the plan. So at the inspectors' hearings, which ran over a number of days, we had a representation from one of our group at every one of those days to make sure that your voices were being heard, and that we were putting forward the devastation that this plan is going to cause our community. We didn't go in there with emotion. We went in there with good, solid planning facts, and we went in there with a barrister who is, has experience in these kind of things. So you would like to think we gave of our best at those hearings. We were also very well supported at those hearings by Ecclesfield Parish Council, by local councillors, by Sheffield and Rotherham Wildlife Trust, our MP Marie Tidball, and also, as I said, our barrister at those hearings. Since then, hundreds of new documents were then produced, and we were given an extra 3 weeks public consultation, which ran through to December, middle of December. That was the 2,500 representations that I talked about. So, having done all that, what's the outcome? So, 16th of January, we got a letter that we were sent from the government inspectors, having gone through all that, having read, allegedly, all those representations and seen what we'd produced at the hearings. The plan came back, not really any change. All sites still included, so all 9 S35 sites still included within the plan, all 7 Chapeltown, Ecclesfield and Grenoside sites. Some minor modifications by way of some of the housing numbers on a couple of the sites, primarily the one up Wheel Lane and Town End Farm, because Sheffield Council, being the kind-hearted souls that they were, decided to let Andrew and Adele keep their home. They were going to take all their farming land off them, but they were going to let them keep their home, which is, really magnanimous of them. Thank you, Sheffield Council. We've now got to the stage where we've got main modifications that are going to happen against that plan. So that's just been announced. So we've got another consultation. And I have to say, we as a group have been trying to get our heads around this main modifications probably for the last week. And I, for a living, read very, very technical documents, and I read contracts and I read technical specifications. it's blown my head off. It's that difficult. So from a general person on the street trying to do this, literally impossible. But that's what we faced all the way through this consultation process. It's been a massive uphill challenge. So, moving on. Group's reaction to the inspector's letter that came out saying, we think the plan's capable of being found sound, despite all our objections, all the real genuine planning issues we raised, constraints with the site. They are saying, it's capable of being found sound. I think the first reaction from me was shock, along with everybody else. We didn't expect every site to come out, but we certainly did not expect every site to stay in. Then there was anger, lots of it. We've spent some evenings in the pub. Some of the language has been quite ripe, is all I will say. But mainly really disappointed because all that effort we thought we were being listened to. We thought that was the whole point of a consultation process, was for us to get listened to. And actually, it kind of feels like it was lip service and they haven't really listened at all. However, it is not a done deal. So don't go out of here tonight thinking, it's a done deal. We may as well not bother. Let's throw in the towel now. There are lots of other things that we have up our sleeves. We're not going to roll over and go away. We're not going to make this easy for them. So Ash and Jo will cover that in more detail shortly by way of what we have up our sleeves and what we're looking to do. So, why are we as a group opposed to the plan? I just wanted to kind of refresh this into everybody's minds. I want to be really clear, we're not opposed to development. We're not NIMBYs, we're not opposed to development. If you look around our area, we have had lots of development. You look at some of the new estates that we've got in and around here that were built on Newton Chambers, the old boiler shop. You've got the Isle factory that we were built on. You've got the old swimming baths that got knocked down. That's got housing on it now. So we are not averse to putting the right things in the right places. What we are averse to is the narrative that there are exceptional circumstances to build on Greenbelt. We absolutely do not believe that to be a case, because what we also think is that if we open the door now to Greenbelt development, we will never shut that door again. And we know full well that there are other sites, B sites, earmarked in case anything falls out of the plan later down the line, or sites shrink where we can't deliver the numbers. And we know that there are more sites in this area. So don't think for a minute that, if one of our sites goes away, that we're not going to, we've won, because it may be that one of the B sites comes in. So, I just wanted to make it clear that for those of you that don't necessarily live close to a site or think that you're not going to be affected, that's not necessarily the case. If these B sites come in, some of you guys who don't necessarily join any of these sites that are in could be affected. What we also contest is proven need. So 3,500 additional homes in Greenbelt on top of about 35,000 homes that Sheffield Council are already building. Sheffield as a city has a declining birth rate. If we've got a declining birth rate, why do we need all these many homes? We've got lots of empty homes as well in Sheffield. So the narrative very much from Sheffield Council is, we need more affordable homes. Well, let me just give you a statistic by way of what Sheffield Council have done. Since the mid-1990s, 10,500 council houses have been knocked down. Do you know how many the council have built to replace them? 339. So the council are really that bothered about affordable homes. That's their effort towards contribution of affordable homes. What we're also saying is, from a need by way of the employment land, if you look around Chapeltown, you will see many sites that have for sale, to let. You've only got to go up on the Smithywood Business Park. There's been empty plots up on there for over a decade. So why do we need more? You drive 6 minutes up the road to Hoyland. What is it up there? Warehouse bloody central. With more being built literally every week. So why do we need all these extra warehouses? Because actually, don't be fooled by the fact that warehouses equal jobs, because in this day and age, warehouses are highly automated. There's loads of robotics that go into logistics. These are not going to provide jobs for local people. So, they're taking up 53 hectares of Greenbelt to possibly provide a couple of hundred jobs. Does that feel like a fair trade-off? Probably not. Cemetery. We were told that, at the hearings that there's quite an immediate need for burial space. One of the sites that's in our area, Town End Farm, multi-phase burial yard planned there, we were told that some of the burial space, particularly Muslim burial, they're running out of burial space for sort of in the next 3 years or so we desperately need to provide more capability. Hence the reason, it would be a multi-phase burial yard. However, in the latest document, Town End Farm, if it was to go ahead, would not start development until 2033. So how does that equate? It's needed within 3 years, but the site's not going to start until 2033. So I think it kind of shows you've got a bit of a mismatch between need and supply. The other point was about schools, proven need for schools, and this came out in the hearings. So from a school's perspective, what happens when you've got a declining birth rate? You have fewer children. So what do we not need if we've got fewer children? More schools. Again, there was a contention over this at the hearings, but what the inspectors did was said, do you know what? We'll still leave the land earmarked on Town End Farm for schools that we probably know we're not going to need. That's not approving an exceptional need, is it? An exceptional circumstance. You're earmarking land that you do not, Greenbelt land that you do not necessarily need. What we're also being told is that, Sheffield are building all this stuff on brownfield sites. There's no brownfield left. I call bullshit. As do everybody in our campaign group, and Mr. Ash will tell you why that's bullshit. What we also wanted to flag as part of this was how dreadful the consultation process was. It was a tick box exercise. Hundreds and hundreds of technical documents put online. If you look at the demographic of our communities, we have a very high population of older people, a lot of which don't exist in the digital world. So why are we putting all these technical documents relating to this plan online? I call that exclusion of many parts of our community. That is not constructive consultation. We've had no comms since those planning hearings from Sheffield Council. They've not engaged with us. They've basically pulled down the shutters and said, you're on your own, guys. All that document's there, read it, make a representation. And what they also gave was the very bare minimum by way of consultation period. If you look at a single planning application, you potentially get about 3 months to complain that somebody's garage is 2 foot over what it should be. But you have had 6 weeks to consume a local plan with all these sites and all that documentation. 6 weeks. It's nigh on impossible. From a plan point of view, if this plan goes ahead, I've already mentioned about unfair distribution. So as I said, 9 of the 14 Greenbelt sites are in S35. Of the 3,500 homes that we've been told needed to be built on Greenbelt, over 40% of those are being put in S35. Of the 53 hectares of additional employment land that's planned for Greenbelt, over 70% of that is in S35. I think that tells you there's a bit of an unfair distribution going in there. If I add to that S13, who are also heavily impacted by this plan, then what you've got is 90% of the homes in 2 postcodes, 100% of the employment land in 2 postcodes. Don't let the council make you believe that this is the inspectors doing. It is not. The inspectors gave the numbers, the council chose the sites, because what the council have been very good at doing is batting off and putting it, saying, oh, it's the government inspectors, the government inspectors. The council planners chose these sites, not the government inspectors. I've already mentioned about Drive for Affordable Housing, and I gave you the stat by way of, the council homes. For affordable housing in Greenbelt, the golden rule is to release Greenbelt, what should be on those sites for housing is 50% affordable housing. That's the golden rule for any site in Greenbelt. Out of the hearings, you could see every one of those developers making their excuses why 50% was not possible. And actually, they've already negotiated it down to 30% on most of the sites. So you set a golden rule and you break it immediately to suit the developers because they're saying, 50% isn't viable. We know full well, and have seen this across many other building sites, what's happened is they will commit to a number now because they'll sell the moon on a stick to get their hands on that land. What will happen is once they've got their hands on that land, they will claim that there's various constraints and issues they've had to overcome that will drive the build cost up. They will therefore negotiate that from a viability point of view, they need to drop the level of affordable housing even lower. So again, don't be fooled by this affordable housing narrative. Yes, there may be some affordable housing on there, but it won't be anywhere near the level of what it should be for Greenbelt sites. And also from an affordable housing point of view, that doesn't necessarily mean social housing. Affordable housing is generally, social housing is a part of affordable housing, but some affordable housing schemes are sort of like 80% of market value. 80% of a big number is still a big number. So, affordable housing. If the drive is for affordable housing, in the 2 areas, S13 and S35, where pretty much 90% of all this Greenbelt development is going to be, and the housing, why are we building in areas that already have plenty of affordable housing? What I looked at last week, the meeting last week, and I'll give you this, is I looked on Rightmove on last week. So from an affordable housing perspective, and I looked up houses under 200,000, so not flats, because the plan is for these to be family homes. I looked up houses under 200,000, however many bedrooms, but it had to be a house. Bungalow, house, terrace, whatever, detached, semi. In S35, there was 29 listed on Rightmove in S35. In S13, there was 43 houses that fit that criteria on Rightmove. What I then looked at was I looked at houses on the west side of the city, affordable housing. So I looked under door. How many houses do you think were under 200,000 on Rightmove in door? 0. Beechiff. How many houses do you think were in Beechiff under 200,000? 0. Worlow. How many houses do you think were under 200,000? 0. Ranmore. How many houses under 200,000? 0. Now I'm going to bamboozle you. How many houses in Topley under 200,000? 1. How many houses in Fulwood under 200,000? 1. So across all those areas, they have 2. Across S13 and S35, where the priority of housing for affordable housing is going to be built, we had over 70 on Rightmove. Does that tell you we're building affordable houses in the right places? Because to be fair to the people of the west side of Sheffield, they have children too that have got to get on the ladder. Where do they go for their affordable housing? They have to move away from their areas. What I wanted to also recap on is the fact that this plan doesn't necessarily stop further Greenbelt release. So the council will tell you this is a one hit. We're coming after this Greenbelt, it's a one hit. We're never going to come back for any more. That's not going to happen. You know, we've opened the door, they'll come back for more. And the reason we think they're going to come back for more is because this plan at the moment that they've got, 25% of the housing that underpins this plan, and this isn't just the Greenbelt sites, this is the 35,000 homes, are called windfall sites. Windfall sites are sites that they don't know about yet. So this is a bit of a potluck. So they're hedging their bet on something that they don't know is going to happen. If that 25% of windfall sites doesn't come forward, they will be coming after more Greenbelt. If the developers don't develop at the speed the council want them to develop, we have building material shortages, you know, we have various issues that may happen, they may not build out the plan as quickly as the Sheffield Council want them to, they will come for more Greenbelt sites. They've already said that they're doing a step trajectory, because the step trajectory basically means they're going to build lower numbers in the first few years, but higher numbers later on. That's called kicking the can down the road in my book. They haven't got a way to deliver the numbers quick, but, you know, give us a bit of time and we might scratch our heads and be able to do it in a few years' time. So they've been allowed to do a step trajectory, which is clearly a big risk. And if that risk doesn't pay off and those sites don't come forward at the pace that they need them to, again, they will be coming after more Greenbelt sites. And as I mentioned, if there's any viability concerns with any of these sites, then again, they will come, and the numbers of houses shrink, for example, on a site because they'll cover some nasty that they can't build on top of. That shrinks, the numbers don't get hit, they'll go for more Greenbelt sites. So, you know, just to set that position, this is not a one-hit wonder. So, impacts. And I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but I just thought it was worth recapping some of the impacts for our community, but also from you guys individually. So if you imagine the sites that we've got in S35, they're Greenbelt sites, but 80% of the housing land allocations that we've got on those Greenbelt sites are on productive farmland. These aren't wastelands, these aren't just bits of green field floating around. This is land that is being actively farmed by farmers in our area to put food on our tables and into the food chain. We're an island, and guess what? There's wars kicking off all over the place, and we're not in the EU anymore. Does that give you a level of confidence around our future food security? Because this isn't just in Sheffield, this is right across the country. We are wiping out so much farmland, it's actually scary. Despite the fact that Sir Keir Starmer stood up in Parliament in January when questioned about building in Greenbelt and said, we will not be ploughing through farmland. Okay, he might need to go and have a word with Adele and Andrew, because I think they'll have a word to the contrary on that one. Also, from a food security point of view, if we start to, you know, have food security issues, what will happen to the price of food? It will go up. We're already in a cost of living crisis. Do we really need our food prices to be going up anymore? Do we need to be relying on imports any more than what we already are? At least 50% of our food at the moment is imported. You start wiping out more Greenbelt and farming land, that number's going to go up, prices are going to go up without a doubt. One of the scary things for us, if you look at where all the sites are located and how close they are together, we are going to be living in a monstrous building site, probably for the next 13 to 14 years. You will not be able to turn for diggers, bulldozers everywhere. Noise, dirt, pollution, you know, it's going to be one massive building site. From a noise and disturbance point of view, you know, the school that we are in here now, so any of you that have got children or grandchildren that, you know, are either at the school over the next few years or will be coming to this school has a site 20 yards across the road, and that school will be having a building site for 10 years. The build out of Strawberry Fields is 10 years long to build those 549 homes. You can imagine the chaos on Chapeltown Ecclesfield Road and Nether Lane, can't you? We all know the issues now. It's only going to get a goddamn sight worse. If you look at the air pollution, right, so this is an interesting one, air pollution. So Sheffield Council have introduced a clean air zone in the centre of town. For us, we obviously live close to the motorway. Air pollution is probably going to be a bit of an issue. We have one air monitor in Chapeltown, up at near Warren Lane, that monitors air pollution, which regularly tips over safe limits by way of air pollution. So we've already got issues here. We start building at that level. Not only during the build period have you got the air pollution from heavy plant and so forth that's going to be going along our roads, but thereafter there's likely to be around an extra 4,000 cars on our roads locally. And also, if you think about the industrial sites, well, what go to warehouses? HGVs. So you think about the amount of traffic and air pollution that's going to cause in this local area. There was an announcement that Sheffield Council were going to allocate £1 million of clean air zone funding to schools around Sheffield to try and tackle air pollution. Now, myself and Linda went to meet with the school last week or so, a week or so ago. Ecclesfield School doesn't have any funding for air pollution issues, so who does? We've put in a freedom of information to request that as to where is this £1 million of funding going to be spent and how have they decided where it's to be spent. But air pollution is going to be a real problem, particularly for our young and our elderly. It will be, you know, health affecting for sure. I've already mentioned the traffic. I don't think I need to say any more about that, but we all know the state of the M1 at junction 35, 35A. We know the A61 and we know the local roads around here. It's absolutely carnage, particularly as we've got a number of big schools within the area. So if you look, we've obviously got Ecclesfield, we've got Chaucer, we've got Ewlands, all of which will be massively impacted by the traffic on the areas. So, risks to health and well-being. I've already mentioned, you know, noise. Well, particularly for the warehouse sites, they're 24/7 operation. So that's round the clock noise. Light pollution. You've only got to go up to Hoyland on an evening. I went up a couple of weeks ago to have a meal up at the Quays at Hoyland, and it was actually like sitting in daylight because of the amount of lights they have up there all along the roads that are now, you know, housing these massive warehouses that also have these massive big lights on them. So light pollution is going to be, you know, a big issue for us. You'll be able to see us from space. We'll be glowing around here. Road safety, I've already mentioned. All these HGVs and extra cars, you know, are you happy that, you know, your children have got to cross these roads to get to school? You know, we've got elderly population trying to get across these roads with so much more traffic and massive HGVs thundering down narrow roads. I've talked about air pollution. One thing I've not talked about is contamination. Some of these sites that we have that they're planning to build on are highly contaminated sites. So Warren Lane is known for contamination, Grenoside Grange is known for contamination, and the biggie, Hesley Wood, an old spoil tip, huge contamination in there. The stuff that's in Hesley Wood spoil tip, the old spoil tip, is scary. There's things like asbestos, arsenic, heavy metals in there, some things called PCBs, which are carcinogenic. So, you know, are you guys really happy that there's going to be a developer going up there, digging all that up, throwing all that up into the air? You know, it's going to come down somewhere. Where's it going to come down on? Us. So, you know, if you're not worried, you should be. One of the geologists that I've spoken to, who lives in Chapeltown, said it's a public health hazard waiting to happen. Anybody digging in there? Following on from a health point of view, we've obviously got a a serious sort of like issue with our health services in our local area. Any of you trying to get doctor's appointments, trying to get on a dentist's list, it's not easy. So you then added loads more people into this area by way of the housing. They're also going to be putting further pressure on the services that we've got by way of doctors and dentists. And guess what they planned to accommodate that? 2 consulting rooms, 2 additional consulting rooms to deal with all these extra people. Notice I say consulting rooms, because what we've actually got a shortage of in the UK is doctors. There's about 10,000 shortage of GPs in the doctors. So they might give us consulting rooms, but there's going to be nobody to man them. So, we've just got the bigger problem of more people, same number of doctors. So from a healthcare point of view, that is going to be a real issue. From an environment point of view, you imagine, you don't have to imagine, look at the pictures. This is what it's going to look like. It's horrific. As I said before, go and have a look at Astley. Go up to, Hoyland and have a look what they've built up there. It's hardly inspirational by way of landscape and make you feel good about where you live, is it? Wildlife that we have in this area. Now, if you were just to build on one site, yeah, you'd like to think that the wildlife might just, shuffle along to a new green bit somewhere else. But if you imagine how much we've got in such a small area, where does our wildlife go? Do we pack them all up in a Pickford's van and take them somewhere else? Because we are literally making their world so much smaller. I think it's fairly safe to say there's going to be nowhere for the badgers that we've got, the deer, the bats, the birds, the insects, the butterflies, the invertebrates. They've got nowhere to go. There's going to be nowhere left for them to go. So from a wildlife point of view, it's going to be catastrophic for them. We're also going to lose our sense of community. We all live here for a reason. If we wanted to live in a massive built-up area, we would all go and live in the town centre. None of us want that. We live here because we like green space. There ain't going to be a whole heap of that left. We've also got a lot of heritage and history by way of how our environments are built up. That's going to be obliterated. Some of the lovely heritage assets that we've got around here, like Ecclesfield Church, Cowley Manor. You start building housing estates right up to those, it just takes away from the whole character of our area. And the whole area is going to look very grey and not very green anymore. So from a visual point of view, it is going to be a massive visual change. Now this is where it gets interesting for you individually. So what we've done is we've taken some advice from local estate agents about impact to house prices. We didn't tell you this before because we didn't want to make it about this as part of the consultation process. But from a house price perspective, if you have houses that are directly adjacent to these sites or very close to, you can pretty much expect a 20% drop in your house value. And I'm sure some people are already seeing that are trying to sell their homes or having to literally drop the value of their home because of the threat of what's there. This is before what's actually planned is actually there. So, that's a significant impact to people that have built up, the equity in their home, in the hope that in their retirement, and in their dotage that they've got something to pass on down. We're also going to saturate the house market. So if you're wanting to sell your home, downsize, upsize, whatever, move somewhere else, you're going to be in competition with so many more other homes. Unlike Dortop, Iwerlo, where you've got one house under 200,000 to compete with. From an insurance perspective as well, there is genuine flood risk associated with putting so much development in such a small area. The developers will tell us that they have to, by law, put on measures into the sites to stop surface water runoff being any more than greenfield runoff. Do we trust that they will do that? Go and have a look at Astley warehouses, because those residents' gardens have now got outdoor swimming pools, and the path that they walk their children to has actually had a jet ski down it. That's how flooded they have been from one warehouse, let alone collectively how much development we've got in this area. So, is this something our community is willing to accept? Absolutely bloody not. So, what have we done as a group so far? We're a constituted group, as I said, we've got no political affiliation, and what we've done is we've set up to mobilise, the community, drive out awareness, and I think, we've done a lot of that with the banners, the posters and everything else, getting you guys engaged. We've also got a very hard working comms team that do a lot of our Facebook posts, a big thank you to them because they really have been on the ball and getting this information out to you. So they have got, and there's just some facts for you. So our Facebook page has 5,000 followers now and growing each time we do these kind of events because word goes around. And we get on average about 110,000 views on our page a month. And over summer that went up to about 1.7 million views, which is not bad going, is it, for a community, a group that started with nothing. We've got a web page, we've got Facebook pages now all set up to basically share. So the big ask from you guys is make sure that when you see things on Facebook, like it, share it, comment on it, because it all helps the algorithm get our reach out further. Our page then pops up to other areas in Sheffield for them to start knowing about what's happening as well. We've also supported the consultations. Hopefully you found that useful. We did you guys templates, we did you drop-in sessions. We've also raised quite a number of complaints with Sheffield Council about, how the consultation has been run. Surprisingly, not many of those have been upheld because they investigate their own complaints. And what we've also done is engage with other groups like STAG and the Street Action Group to try and get best practice and key ideas from them as to how about fighting this big thing. We also attended all the hearings, as I mentioned, to make sure that we got the community voice across. And what we do is we lobby at all the council meetings, so we get protest marches outside, but every council meeting we've been raising questions and statements so that our councillors know we're not going away. And we're going to keep doing that. The next one's not until June now, but we will keep doing that right up until the bitter end to make nuisances of ourselves. Fundraising, we've obviously done loads of fundraising, and this is where the numbers come in, so I just need to grab this. So, funds raised today, to date, from a group perspective, we've raised over £23,000 of funds. And that is things from like donations, it's been running events like the Halloween Disco, Greenfest, and various things like selling merch. That's a good effort, but we need to do a lot more. So I hope you've got deep pockets. What we've spent to date, so we've raised just over 23,000 and we've spent about 21,000. The vast majority of that was legal fees and to pay our barrister to help us support not only our inputs into the hearing but to be there as well, because obviously we're all volunteers, we've never done this before, and it is a very difficult process to navigate, is the planning process, so most of it has gone there. Right, I think that's about it from me. So, I'd just like to wrap up by saying thanks again for all your efforts. We're not done, we will carry on, and I'm now going to hand over to Joe and Ash to tell you what's happening next.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. The main thing, obviously I'm involved with, is the Greenbelt. Now, to prove exceptional circumstances, the council will have to prove that there's no more Greenbelt left in the city, and that's exactly what they're saying. Now, we produced a document during the consultation process, which was Exam 141, which we proved just by a couple of us initially looking for 2 weeks on Google Earth and various other bits what we knew about. We found over 80 sites with 124 hectares free, old buildings, old area, plots of land what had just been wasted, which had been built on previously and not used. And the council have just tried dismissing it. It's not on their Greenbelt register, but they've just tried saying, well, it's just we've not really got the resources to things like that. So their excuse is, when we did what's called a call for sites, all they did in 2019 would just go to a couple of developers who they knew or they got relationships with or various other little bits. So, and what happened was, these developers went back and went, oh, we've got a nice little plot of land, yeah, this would be ideal for us. But they did it over a Christmas period and just before COVID. So, all the developers never even got to know about these cul sites because the council just went to a certain few and kept it really quiet just to get enough of what they wanted through people which they said they've got previous relationships with. Right? This is how corrupt it is, and what they're saying is, the problem being, they need to update this Greenbelt register as well, legally, annually. Now, Sheffield City Council weren't doing this. The last time, it has been updated recently, but the last time they did it was 2019. So they wasn't even updating the Greenbelt register and keeping on top of it. So there were lots and lots of sites coming available that the council didn't know about and still don't know about, which to us proves there are no exceptional circumstances. So they do not need any Greenbelt whatsoever. There's plenty of Greenbelt everywhere, as we all know. So this is where hopefully now we can do our little bit. Now, as Joe's mentioned, we are merged with S13 and various other groups to try and reach out a little bit further. Because obviously we're quite limited to this area, to areas we know, but obviously S13 and various other areas are also going to do the same. So any bits of land that you know about, which is, I don't know, getting used for dump, kids are playing on it with trials bikes or whatever, any bits of land what you think is useful, if you can let us know on our website, which is saveourgreenbelt.net, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is saveourgreenbelt.net. There's a tab that says brownfield sites, and if you just go on it, you can just fill a few bits in, you don't have to fill it all in, and it'll register these plots of land and pieces of land that are available. And then obviously the cells will go through it, we'll see if it's on the Greenbelt register initially, and if it isn't, we're going to log it and add it to these 100, so exam 141, which obviously we've got roughly about 80 sites, which we did really, really quickly. So proving that there's plenty and plenty of sites out there available. Right. So obviously what we're going to do is, as well, we've reached out to over 1,000 developers as well, the people we know, and off lists, off contract lists that we know of. So this is exactly what the council should have done, but didn't do. And during the consultation, the planning department said they didn't actually have the resources to do this with the 60 odd, 80 odd employees that they've got. But 3 of us has managed to do this in 2 weeks. Right? Yeah, well, working full time as yeah, thanks Jill, yeah. So this is how bad the council are at this. So one of his main objectives is we've now got to prove that these exceptional circumstances, which they are saying could be present, might not be, but who knows, we need now to get as much of this land possible that we know of, not just this side of the city, wherever you might think it might be in Sheffield, if you've got family, friends, where you're travelling past or you're up and down to and from work, if you think that's never been built on, that's always been available. If you can just let us know, either by filling that form out or just emailing the KEG team, there's an email address on the website as well, or even if you just, what's the best way, just write a letter to us if need be, or just, however, if you know me, stop me by all means and just give me pieces of paper in my hand and I'll have a look at it and I'll see whether it's on Greenbelt list and whether we can use it or not and add it to this document. Because obviously we want to do this to actually show the council that we can, a community come together and we can make this work and they do not need to build on 1 acre of Greenbelt whatsoever. So this is what we're aiming at now. So anybody who can help with that, it'd be really, really appreciated.
There is a problem with that because I think I did raise it with one of them and he said, well, we need large areas because the developers don't want little bits.
They don't, that's exactly. The actual inspectors did want smaller areas, so that's rubbish. That's not actually true. So, but we'll look at it, and the more we can get, we can prove there's not exceptional circumstances, it's a good argument for us, and we can possibly have a good go at stopping this even at the last minute. So this is what we're aiming at now. This is very strong.
These acres be still allowed, or are they being disregarded?
No, it's still there, but what we're going to do is we're just going to look at it and I'm just going to try and get as much as possible and we're going to fill the document back in again and we can go back to inspection and say, look, here we are. And Joe might come on to this in a minute, and legally this might be from a legal angle, so this is where the council may have failed. So, moving on, obviously, what we also need to do is once we've done this, is just lobby your MPs and your councillors. Now there's a few sat here, just lobby them, let them know. I know obviously the councillors are here and helping us and supporting us greatly, but write to your local MP, Marie Tidball, whoever, just write to them and just explain to them, you've come to this, we need help, we want this, and obviously write to them that you're going to vote them out if need be, it don't matter. This is how you get change here, this is how you change it from day one. So let our stance be known and try as best to get things moving along. We don't need to build on Greenbelt at all, we just don't. It's not needed. And like Joe's mentioned, this will not stop here. She's mentioned B sites already. Typical example, next door here at Cracow, you want to build on Strawberry, did you know field bang opposite here on the back of Cracow, that's a B site. So if they don't get that, they're going on that. It will not stop here. And Joe's going to mention something in a bit, what's called the tilted balance. The plan fails in 2 or 3 periods at a time. If the tilted balance drops, the council can go back and say, oh, we haven't quite got enough here, we're going to need some more. And they'll come back for more and more and more. And the local plan gets looked at every 5 years. So if it's not worked in the first 5 years, they can come back and say, we're going to want some more now. So, and they will keep coming back, trust me, this will happen. So this is not to protect a little bit of Greenbelt now, they will just keep coming back and back and back until they've taken it all, especially from this area as well. So, like I said, the main thing is, try and help us out, any pieces of land that you can find, go on the website, write us an email or whatever, and just let us know where it is, please. Alright, thank you.
As you come towards Carrotman at Top Flowers, there's a road going in there, and there's as big as that one at Oil and Common, the biggest, there's 8 that big going up there. I don't think you realise just how much development is coming your way.
Let's come in.
Yes. Can everybody hear me okay? Oh, good. So just before I start, I wanted to say what a privilege it is to stand here today, because my connection to this place goes back quite a long way. I don't know, some people may know that my grandfather was deputy head here for quite a few years, and may well have taught some people in this room. So, and my father and my uncles came through the school as well. And today I live close enough to Ecclesfield School that on a quiet day I can hear the children playing in the playground. So for me it's not just somewhere on a map, it's part of my family history. So when I stand outside the gates of Ecclesfield School and look across the strawberry fields, it takes me right back to my childhood when I used to go and pick strawberries there with my dad. And then just over there at Hesley Wood as well, I spent many nights with my friends at Scout Camp, exploring the woods and thinking that the world felt quite far away from S35. And it's places like these, like Strawberry Fields and Town End Farm and Hesley Wood, they're not just places on a planning map, they're part of our community, they're part of our memories, and they're also part of what makes this area the place that we all love. And so I believe very strongly that places like this deserve to be protected. So, I'd just like you all now to imagine something different. So, imagine looking across the road from here and seeing house after house after house, stretching across all that we see now as open fields. And imagine driving through Ecclesfield, and instead of the fields and the views that you see rows and rows and rows of houses, and not just on one side of the road, but also on the other side of the road. Imagine Town End Farm gone, bulldozed and concreted over. And imagine all the consequences that that brings with it, including the very real flooding risks down in the centre of Ecclesfield, further down Chapeltown Road, and also on Station Road. Because this isn't a distant possibility, this is exactly what this plan could mean. So, I'm going to be honest with you, I personally wasn't surprised about the outcome of the inspector's solicitor. Because, and it wasn't the news that we wanted and we hoped for, but if you break it down, it's not entirely unexpected. At a national level, we've got a Labour government pushing an extremely ambitious housing target, and at a local level, we've got a Labour council, or Labour-run council, supported by the Green Party, attempting to meet those housing targets through the local plan process. And then you've got the planning inspectorate, which ultimately works within the national policy framework set by the government. But the key point, and this is absolutely critical, is the council told all the councillors that the reason they needed the plan, including building on the Greenbelt, was to stop the developers having a free-for-all to something called the tilted balance. And we've gone back and used the council's own data, and there are points within the plan where the tilted balance is still going to apply. There's about 4 or 5 years at different points in the plan. We've got a graph that shows it all, where there's still very likely to be a free-for-all for developers. And developers know this. And there are already sites across Sheffield where landowners and developers are going to be watching very closely. And that includes many B-sites, which Mr. Ash mentioned a few minutes ago. And there's lots and lots in Chapeltown and Ecclesfield and Grenoside. And especially there's one just behind this school. And some of which, these B-sites, the plans have already been drawn up, and the developers will be ready to pounce. So the argument that was used, that the plan somehow protects the rest of the Greenbelt, it simply doesn't hold up. In fact, there's a very real argument that once the Greenbelt boundaries have been moved and or opened up, then it becomes much easier for others to follow. Now, in my own personal view, I didn't think this battle was ever going to be won in the inspector's hearings. It was always likely that the next stages, including democratic pressure on your MPs and the councillors, and also through the courts, would really play a major role in this. So we're expecting the inspector's letter after the major modifications consultation, probably thinking around June time. And the major modifications consultation opened up last week. So your voices in the process still matter enormously, because showing overwhelming public opinion is very important for what comes next. And that brings me to the work that the group's been doing since the inspector's letter was received in January. So we received the letter, all quite downhearted, as Joe mentioned, and then we sat down, after getting our anger off the table, we sat down and decided as a group, what are the actual real plan stoppers, we named them. And we identified 3 key paths forwards. And so the first is the planning stage. I'll come to this first, even though it comes a bit later down the line. So if the development proposals ever get to this point, then there will be major battles at the planning stage around everything that we want to battle: traffic, pollution, infrastructure, biodiversity loss, flooding, and much more that you can think of. But the planning stage is quite some way off, and right now the real focus is going to be stopping the plan itself. So the next plan stopper we came up with was the democratic route. And so councillors are eventually going to vote on whether or not to adopt the plan. based on the inspector's letter. And we're expecting this to be around July time, although it could be slightly after. And that'll be after the consultation stage is finished and the inspector's final report has been received. And so, if enough councillors recognise the risks and vote against the plan, then it could very well stop there. So that's why these upcoming elections really matter. It's public record who voted for the plan and who didn't vote for the plan in its current form, and so that's where you can make your vote count. And it's why also conversations with friends and family and colleagues and neighbours in other areas of the city are really, really matter as well, because all other areas have councillors that may well be persuaded to vote against the plan too, because local democracy still matters. And the third plan stop we came up with, and this is the really big one, is a statutory legal challenge against the plan itself, against the adoption of the plan. And it's very similar to what you might have heard as judicial review. And if the plan is adopted, then we have a really, really short window of about 6 weeks in which it can be legally challenged through the courts. But because that window is so short, the legal case has to be prepared before we get to that point, and before the vote happens, so that the legal challenge is ready to go as soon as the plan's been adopted, if the vote goes against it. And so that means that we've already started work on this. We've started working with a specialist legal firm of solicitors who Sheffield City Council know very well, and we're extremely excited about letting them know who they are, because, well, I'd like to see their faces when we find out. But preparing this case is not cheap, and we estimate that the cost is going to be somewhere in the region of around £60,000 or £70,000 from now until the end of the process. And so we've already got some funding in place, as we mentioned, and we've already started work. It's well underway, but we can't do this alone. And this is where we need your help. So first of all, we need your continued support, because the strength of the campaign is within the support of the community. And without that support, none of this works, and then the council will win. But second, we really need your help funding the legal fight. And now, it's not something that we can sit back and wait and see, because the legal window is so short, and the opportunity, if we miss it, the opportunity will be gone, and the plan will come into force. So, the preparation is happening now. And any of those of you who know me personally know that when I care about something deeply, I throw absolutely everything I have behind it, and I care deeply about this community. This is my home. I grew up here. I learned to swim in Chapeltown baths, and Sheffield is my city. And I'm absolutely prepared to give this fight everything I've got, and I know that everyone in our group feels exactly the same, because this isn't just about one field, it's not just about the farm, it's about protecting the character of our community and ensuring that development happens in the right places. And don't be fooled, it's not going to be a quick battle, it's going to be more of a marathon rather than a sprint. But personally, I'd rather spend the next 3 years fighting the council and standing up for the place that we love, with a chance of success, than spending the next decade watching our fields getting bulldozed, concreted over, countryside disappearing, and wondering whether or not there's anything that we could have done more. So the question I'm going to leave you with tonight is simple. You're all here because you love this place and you love the community. And this isn't just about land, it's about us as a community. And when communities stand together and organise ourselves and we refuse to be ignored, then we can achieve extraordinary things. So tonight I'm asking you, stand with us and fight with us, and together we'll be able to protect the place that we all love.
Actually, do you know what, Jill? By the time the year has gone past, you'll have chaired a group that has weekly meetings, you'll have virtually full-time for absolutely no pay whatsoever. You'll be attending council meetings on a monthly basis where actually you're now getting really good at putting a strategy together on those to make it really difficult for them. You'll be challenging councillors, you'll be challenging MPs, you'll be taking part in protests, and you'll be speaking to the press. I would have literally said to them, you are having a laugh. I am the least political person you could come across. I didn't know my MPs, I don't know the councillors, I knew nothing. I was quite oblivious, and I'm probably the average person, I'll be honest. So it's been a massive, massive learning curve to get to where we are. But what I would say is we have a fantastic group that has obviously got us to that place. It was quite interesting for me last week, so I did similar to what we're doing today on Thursday, and then on Friday I went with a few of our team to go and see the unveiling of the plaque to commemorate street trees. So it was lovely to see it because our lovely leader, Kate Josephs, who I don't know if people know this, but she is the Chief Executive for Sheffield City Council, made one or two really good quotes that I would like to just share those with you now. So she said, how important it is that public institutions work hard to listen to and to serve the communities. She said they have learned from the past and they will do better in the future. She said that there was a loss of trust for too many people, but don't worry about that because we've actually rebuilt that trust now. I mean, what a joke. It was very hard not to say anything. The other thing you might want to know is that 1.4 million of our council tax was paid out to actually fight our own residents that were trying to look after these trees. So this is what we're talking about here. So what you'll have seen that we've been handing out is we're telling you that this is what we have been told, but the truth is this. So we're telling you this is quite different. This is the people who are telling us we can now trust them, because actually, they know that they built our trust back. So I'm asking you, if you know of any other things that you've been told, that you found out later to not be the truth, please let us also know. There's some forms over there. So if anybody hasn't got one of these, please help yourself. And also, I'm also interested in anything else that you've found out. I've had residents say to me, quite recently, well, you know what, if this plan goes ahead, I think I'm going to have to sell up and I'm going to move out of the area. I mean, how sad is that? How sad that we're letting Sheffield City Council drive you away from your own homes and your own communities. That is not right. We're not going to do that. We're not going to let them do that to us. So one of the things that we have done is we've formed an alliance with all of the other sites across Sheffield. So we've been talking recently, you'll have heard Joe talking about S13. There's also another one in Lodgemore. So all are on S12. We've basically started to bring all of those people together. The great thing about that is we suddenly start to have a lot more strength in numbers. So where we might be told, oh well, I don't know, for instance, Town and Farm, we've taken, 20 houses off. So what? It's one side. If that'll be fine, it won't affect the plan. Suddenly when you start looking at 50 houses here and 20 houses there and 100 houses there, it makes a hell of a lot of difference. So this alliance will really help us with that. We can use that now also to start going out to the rest of Sheffield to say, you need to get behind this. You need to get behind this because, as we've said, this is creating a precedent. Once they've started on Greenbelt, they're coming after you. Get ready for it because they are coming after you. As has been mentioned, we're looking at main modifications. I'll be honest with you, it's really complicated. So what we're doing is we're trying to look at how we can best help you to actually put your objections forward on that. So we'll be coming out to talk. We'll be coming out probably through various media. So we have obviously Facebook. We also have a mailing list. If you want to get on the mailing list, and we'll be telling you what we really could do with your help for the main modifications. So I know Joe just mentioned it there. How can we actually, what can we do to influence the vote that's going to be taken by the councillors? So let your councillors and your MP know. Tell them how you feel about this. We'll perhaps put some information together that might be helpful for you if you want to make representations with some of the main points. But make sure they know this is how you feel. If you have family or friends around the city, ask them to contact their MP, their councillors, let them know. Because the problem is there's so much misinformation out there, and I'll be honest, some of those councillors don't really understand what the issues are. We've had to get our heads around this. I don't know, for whatever reason, they don't seem to know. Attend the protest that we have outside the town hall. I know a lot of you do, and I thank you for that. But the more numbers we get out there, the better. We stand outside the town hall just before one of the council meetings, and we just make it known. That's what we're there for. And we do a bit of shouting. We get our people to take some pictures. The other thing that you can help with publicity is we really would like it if you could sign a petition. We have a petition over there. We're also asking that if you can take a sheet away with you, or if you can print the sheets off of the website and get as many people to sign up and say they don't want building on the Greenbelt. All of that is great. I went to the council meeting, the last one that we had a week ago, and actually there was somebody who got 14 signatories and therefore was able to stand up and say, I have a petition and I'd like to read out my problems. Well, 14 guys, come on, we can do a lot better than that. The other thing is social media. I know we've said a lot about this, so, I'm not big on, this is probably the most I've ever used social media, I'll be totally honest. I am now the top fan on our group because I like and share and comment on everything. My daughter told me, she sat over there, this is what you have to do to get the algorithm going. Even if you put, interested, I didn't know that, smiley face, whatever you do, all that will help the message to get out. Share it, please do that. That helps get our message out. And I've given you these, we were told and the truth is, and what's really nice is already we're starting to see that people are actually quoting some of these things in their social media posts. Please do that, we would be delighted. Let's get the message out there. If you want to be on our mailing list, again, will you see, I think, is it over here we're doing mailing list? So we send out emails on a regular basis. We'll only send it out if we've got things to say, but we'll keep you updated and we can let you know what's going on and ask if you can be a part of anything. So please get yourself on the mailing list. If you're not on Facebook, which I appreciate a lot of people are not, and then at least you'll get an email on a regular basis. We also have a website, so you can have a look at that. And I think all of this you'll be able to see in this little leaflet that we've provided. I think, I know everybody's been saying this, but just to summarise, we need to consider what we're going to lose. A lot of people say, it's going to spoil your view and this, that and the other. It's not really just about views, this. It's about the quality of our lives, and it's about the communities that we're in, that we potentially could lose forever. We've got to really think about that. We don't want to lose those communities, those groups that we're with, the people that we see on a regular basis. We've got to take a stand now and get behind this. Because if we don't, there is no undo button. If this goes ahead, no future council is going to be able to say, perhaps that was a bit of an error, let's stop that. There is no undo button. Once it's done, it's done. A lot has been said about the B site. Once exceptional circumstances have been proven, and I've seen this because there was various hearings where they just spoke with the developers and they're saying, well, once you've proven that this is exceptional circumstances, we're going to be in there because we've got lots of other sites that we want also to get built on Greenbelt. So this is just the start of a slippery slope. We've mentioned about house prices. It stands to reason they are going to go down because you've also got, we're flooding the market. Do we need all those houses in our area? No, we don't. So the flooded market is going to mean anyway that properties are going to slump in price. So I know that all sounds really depressing, we are sorry for that. We're just trying to actually sort of, if you like, paint the reality. There's just one or two other things that I wanted to mention, and one is that I always feel a bit awkward asking this, but one of our team has said that if anybody has seen that the BBC are asking for nominations, they're asking for nominations of people in your community who've made a difference. If you could think about nominating anybody from this group, or even this group, that would be great, because we think that that would give us a lot more exposure. It's not because we want to be like, oh, look at us. It literally is because as a group, hopefully, that would give us a little bit more, you know, if you like, sort of media attention. Please look at these site maps. I mean, I could cry when I look at these site maps. It's just horrendous. And I'll be honest, you know, I'm in a position where it could be houses at the back of me, but looking at some of the houses, looking at those factories, I mean, it's just terrible. The other thing is, we've got to start fundraising. You know, I know people get fed up with that, but if we don't start getting the money in, we're going to really struggle to pay for these solicitors' fees, and we need to do that. If people have come today and they haven't got cash, we do have card readers, so you can contribute that way. What time is it now? We need to finish in about a quarter of an hour. So what I was going to say to people, we'll be finishing at about 8:45, and at that point we will draw the raffle. So please, if anybody would like to get any last minute raffle tickets or buy any merchandise, please fill in any of the sort of petitions that we've got over there. So it really, I also want to say thank you for everybody who organised this today, because it's been quite a team effort. The team are brilliant, and I thank them for that. I also want to say thank you to our community for your ongoing support, and I know Jo covered this a lot in what she said, but thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for taking that interest. We do have some local councillors that are with us today. Could you just stand if you're a local councillor? So we will finish in a minute, but if you want to speak to any of the local councillors that are around here, you can perhaps ask them how they're going to vote, so you can get an idea.
I was going to say, can you tell them to vote for so that we can't, you know?
And we can't tell you to vote for, what we can tell you is basically who has voted for and against this plan, but we can tell you that afterwards. We also have members of our team that are around the room who I'll get to just stand up in a minute, and they will be available for you to talk to ask any questions. So really, just for me to round everything off, my plea to you is don't let Sheffield City Council, the same people that should actually be representing us and representing our views and looking after us, don't let those people make your life miserable or drive you from your home. We need to protect our communities, our villages, our life, and we need to make sure we do this and continue to fight this battle against them, whatever that takes.